Downs, the political commentator, is with us. This is a disturbing story, Charlie. Israel condemning what is being described as a Jew hunt after Israeli football fans were attacked by a pro-Palestinian mob in Amsterdam. Let's have a listen to a talk listener that was at the match. He called earlier into Alex Phillips' show to explain what he'd experienced. Here it is.
I saw an Israeli fellow being pummeled. He was lying on the floor and he was getting his head kicked in. So me and my mate, we went up to these guys. We said, stop hurting him, leave him alone. We picked the guy up. We kind of dispersed the crowd. And a minute later, the guys came back to us. Are you Jewish? Are you Israeli? We're like, no. And one guy turned up and he just punched me in the face. Glass was broken. It could have got worse, but the ringleader of this particular gang, there was a lot of pockets of different gangs. They said, no, they're British, we can't hurt them.
I mean, wow. This is extraordinary stuff.
This is really dark stuff. I mean, I was looking actually before we came on at some information about Amsterdam, and I think that basically tells you the whole story.
Yeah.
If you look at the demographics of Amsterdam, like London actually, and many other cities across Europe, it has been massively, hit very hard by immigration. Only 50% of people living in Amsterdam are native Dutch. The rest are immigrants of various different stripes. But there is I mean, again, it has to be said, let's just be real here for a moment. There is a fairly significant Muslim population in Amsterdam, and I'm not saying that it's all of them that are engaging in this kind of violence. It's a tiny minority, let's be clear about that. But it's probably not helped. Like, it probably hasn't helped this situation because, the reports, unconfirmed reports, I think these are suggesting that a lot of the people involved in these assaults were of Turkish and Moroccan backgrounds, which, you know, is noteworthy.
It's interesting, just to go back to our previous story of Sadiq Khan. This is a man ultimately who could stop marches going on in Now, I'm not a great fan of stopping protest, even if you don't believe it, but I think what we've seen with the anti-Israel protests that have taken place, many of them, there's another one taking place this weekend, same day as Remembrance Sunday, for some reason that gets a green light. I mean, at what point would somebody even countenance the idea? Frankly, any other protest on the day of Remembrance Sunday, no matter what it was, even if it was for the rights of daffodils to grow nicely on the embankment,
yes,
you'd say, well, OK, you can do that, but not this weekend because it's Remembrance Day. But particularly one that has an inflammatory nature to it and a lot of very contemporary and troubling connotations.
Yeah, and explicitly...
You just say no, right?
Explicitly foreign as well. Let's just be real about this.
Yes, a protest for another country.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to... I mean, this is obviously loose... Well, it is very much actually related to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. And this is something that I don't tend to take a side in because my primary concern, my primary constituency is Britain and how this affects Britain. And this is a conflict that I don't think Britain should be involved in because it's not to our benefit to get involved. If anything, I think our involvement would heighten tensions and be inflammatory to other countries in the region. But that doesn't mean that you can't look at scenes like the ones we're seeing out of Amsterdam and think that something seriously wrong, something seriously dark is happening there. This kind of what amounts to ethnic conflict on the streets of Europe between groups who are, between one group certainly who isn't native to this continent, who's been invited in by our governing class as a matter of government policy.
Absolutely right.
Is now either protesting in the name of Gaza and against Israel,
or kicking the living daylights out of Jewish people.
Indeed, like surely something has to be done about this.
Well, we live in a world with strange mentalities. Just a brief mention: man with a rocket launcher shoots fireworks at passers-by. This is a fella with a launcher, did this near Birmingham city centre near Aston University. Police have arrested 3 individuals, 17 to 19, for launching fireworks and committing related offences. Just a very brief word on this, Charlie. I mean, I don't know where you have to be on the evolutionary scale to think, oh, this is a good idea. I know what I'll do. I'll get a rocket launcher and fire some rockets at people.
A great many people in Birmingham live in social housing, OK? And there was a time decades ago, especially in the 60s and 70s, where you can look at footage of people who were living in social housing at that time, and they would still take care of their front lawns. They would make sure that their hedges were trimmed. They would make sure that their house and street looked nice and was a pleasant place to live because they cared about the place they were living in, because there was a sense of home, there was a sense of belonging, a sense of community, and a sense that it was their duty to look after the place that they were living. Now, in 2024, we see scenes like this, where I don't know whether this guy was a resident of Birmingham. I don't think that's even necessarily relevant. There is absolutely no regard for the place that you live. It's treated as something that it's not even yours. It's just somewhere.
You wouldn't have to be a pyrotechnics expert to know the stupidity of doing this as well. I mean, you could literally blind somebody, could probably kill somebody.
Yes.
Final story here. It's always worth throwing this in. The pub that's had to change its name because it was very offensive. The pub in Abingdon in Oxfordshire was called The Midget. And it was called The Midget for many years. In fact, back in the 70s, it used to be called The Magic Midget. And then they, I don't know whether they ran out of wood or whatever happened, then they changed it to The Midget. But a disability advocate, Dr. Erin Pritchard, said the name was offensive. She is a lecturer at Liverpool Hope University. She has dwarfism. She started a petition against the name, gathered over 1,000 signatures, and the pub, owned by Green King, said, yes, we're clearly very bad people, so they've changed it. It's no longer called The Midget, it's called The Roaring Raindrop.
Well, this, again, links back to things that we've already said about today. So this person who has been campaigning on this issue is a member of the ruling class, and that's something that people really need to get their head around. In being a university lecturer, this person who claims to represent the views of the downtrodden and so on is not at all. They are a member of the elite class. If you are a university lecturer, then you are in a position of significant authority. And this view that the name of this pub is offensive, The Midget, very much belongs to this style of politics that has completely infested every area of society, and especially at the level of elites. You know, whether it is the universities or the government, civil service, corporations, all of them are pushing this kind of politics. And so what this actually is, what this is an expression of, is punching down. It's the system, if you want, the elites, punching down at a pub. And a pub is also symbolically very important for Britain. It is the heart of Britain. It's the most important institution in British life. And so it's this kind of managerial, out-of-touch, disconnected elite punching down at one of the last manifestations of what Britain actually truly is in its heart and its soul.
I was just trying to remember whether there's another meaning to the word midget, whether it has other...
well, I think this pub was actually named after the car. Which is also...
It was a car, wasn't it? Yes, it was a little car.
I mean, that's what I read. It was actually named after the car.
What came first, the car or the small person?
Who knows?
I have no idea. Was the car designed for small? I don't...
And people are welcome to be offended by the word. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be offended, but what I am saying is we can't be... I mean, I don't know how long this pub was called The Midget for, but we can't just apply our modern, right-on sensibilities to things that have been maybe existed for centuries.
True, pubs, and there used to be a pub called the Slag and Lettuce. It's now the Slug and Lettuce. They needed to bring it up to date. I don't think that's true, by the way. But there was a pub near me called the Black Boy. I think there's a few of those. They've all changed their names as well. Some street names that have had to change because some people got upset, but most people never got upset. That's the interesting thing.
And it's the same as the pulling down of statues that we've seen over the last 5 years. It's an expression of a kind of politics that just doesn't tolerate. It's actually bigoted in the real sense of the word, in that it doesn't tolerate views that disagree with it, and it's only interested in posing its moral vision on the world. And if you follow that through to its logical endpoint, everything burns.
Everything burns, Charlie,
because nothing is up to scratch.
Indeed.